Ella viene dejando su marca en la cultura popular desde hace más de 20 años. La dama es una trotamundos, una virgen, una vaquera, una geisha, una señorita y una lady inglesa. Jugó con la prensa como si fuera su amante, atacándola cuando no la complacía. Pero ha sido su relación más duradera, la que le permitió reinventarse y retener la corona de la suma sacerdotisa del pop. Madonna está expuesta. Madonna es la artista musical más exitosa de todos los tiempos. Cantante pop, compositora, actriz, escritora, productora de cine, vendió más de 200 millones de discos. Se presentó en 7 giras mundiales y vendió sus libros en más de 110 países. Tan innovadora y excitante como cuando debutó en 1982, la popularidad de Madonna no da señales de caducidad. Y Exposed va a brindarles una mirada única sobre la extraordinaria vida de Madonna, con acceso exclusivo a las fotos que la hicieron famosa y lanzaron miles de titulares.
She's incredibly skilled at manipulating the press. How long I've been photographing her is many years. You know, somewhere in the vicinity, I suppose, of just under 20 years. So it's a long time watching her develop and seeing her brilliance, one might say.
Pero a pesar de ser la mujer más fotografiada del planeta desde hace más de 20 años, fue su decisión reciente de volver a ser madre la que iba a ser su jugada más polémica a la fecha. Pasadas las 4 en una tarde otoñal en África, un avión despegó del aeropuerto internacional de Kamuzu en Lilongwe, Malawi. Llevaba una carga preciosa, un niño de 13 meses de edad llamado David Banda, al que Madonna estaba decidida a adoptar.
The picture of Madonna and David coming in from that airport was worth an absolute small fortune. I think she genuinely wanted to help. I just don't think that she handled it in the best way possible. She did the full PR spin, you know, the African dancing and the cuddling and the kissing and the walking around the orphanage and the hospital, etc., etc., etc. And all of a sudden we had the Madonna African Roadshow.
Durante los 10 días previos, Madonna había estado recorriendo los orfanatos de Malawi. Hizo varias apariciones públicas y prometió donar $3 millones para ayudar a los niños de Malawi. Y entonces conoció a David.
One, she's a multimillionaire going into a very, very poor country, the second poorest country in the world. You're going to look like Lady Bountiful as you dish your money out. And 2, you're going to look like some kind of version of a child snatcher as you go in and take a baby out with you.
It is a solution for some individual children some of the time. It is not a global solution to it at all.
I think it's great that she's adopting an African baby. I think it's brilliant, you know. And I hope she's very happy with, you know, the family's very happy.
My personal views on taking an individual out of its country, out of its support network, away from its culture, I don't know if that is necessarily the best way to help a child.
Mientras Madonna recibía al bebé David en su hogar de Londres, las críticas sobre la adopción aumentaban. Madonna publicó una selección de fotos del nuevo integrante de su familia.
Madonna released the photographs to counteract the backlash that the media were presenting her right on her doorstep. I mean, you had commentators, you had photographers, 60 or 70 of them flying in from all over the world. You had 20 TV crews. It became a massive news story.
I think the key role that celebrities can have has to be in raising awareness. The ability for big stars to get into the papers, to be on Oprah Winfrey show, to be on the internet gives them a unique opportunity to be able to highlight what are considerable issues.
I definitely want Malawi and his culture and his roots and his background to be a part of his life. I want him to learn to speak Chichewa. So I want to keep him connected to his culture and where he comes from.
A pesar de las apariciones en televisión, la polémica seguía firme y un viaje al gimnasio apenas horas después de la bienvenida a David fue el colmo del escándalo.
Madonna wanted to turn this situation around to put it into the positive light. So she had to get out there. What she didn't want to do is take David out of that early stage because she knows he's high commodity. She'll be using that photo call, believe me, to the best of her advantage. I just hope she rings me up.
And what's interesting about this photograph, of course, is that Madonna often has particular ways that she dresses when she knows she's going to be snapped by the paparazzi. But she doesn't try to cover up her face in any way here. Instead of that, she's got this kind of defiant chin jut. And what she's indicating is that she has certain routines, she's got certain values, she's got certain ways of looking after herself and presenting herself. And she's saying that no matter what happens, I will continue to do those regardless of what people think.
Madonna se mantuvo firme en su decisión de adoptar. Le pido a toda esa gente que vaya a África y vea lo que yo vi y recorra esas aldeas. Que vea a los niños de 8 años a cargo de sus hogares, a las madres agonizantes. A continuación, en Madonna Exposed, les mostramos las imágenes que catapultaron a Madonna al superestrellato.
She'd say, out, don't want it. That's what I want. The one where the boobs come out. No bra, great overalls. I'm going to shock everyone today, and I'm going to be all around the world in 30 seconds flat, and I'm going to sell 1 million records tomorrow.
Veremos cómo Madonna pasó de ser la reina del escándalo a la reina del hogar.
The notion of her in a country pub with a sort of hacking jacket and a pint is very strange to me.
Y el improbable cuento de hadas de su transformación de bomba sexual a escritora para niños. Fue una de las personas más influyentes del siglo XX, y ni siquiera las exigencias del XXI lograron acallarla. A través de las décadas, Madonna ha exhibido una rara cualidad, la capacidad de predecir las tendencias de la moda y a la vez definirlas. Su constante reinvención está documentada en millones de fotos de paparazzi.
Her relationship with the paparazzi has always been fantastic. Absolutely unbelievable, even to this day. At the start, she courted it as much as she possibly could. She courted it with controversy. She courted it with her style. She constantly changed her image and would shock us.
She keeps an eye on what is happening in the clubs and in the streets, and she likes to keep a step ahead. She likes to get the hip culture before the general public actually know about it.
Madonna can be called Mother of Reinvention because of the persistence of her transformations.
Madonna was not only creating great music, but the music actually was secondary. It was the image that we're obsessed with. What is this girl going to do next?
However she appears in public, it somehow imprints itself on our consciousness and spawns a zillion copies almost automatically.
No muchas madres de 3 hijos pueden arrogarse el haber diseñado una línea de ropa para una cadena de primer nivel. Tan elegante y moderna en 2006 como lo era en 1983, la ropa de Madonna se vendió en minutos.
She is part of our fall advertising campaign. We are dressing her and her entire crew off stage, and we've also teamed up with her to do a tracksuit that will be in all of our H&M stores this fall.
For Madonna, who's almost 50, to be wearing this, uber trendy tracksuit and on billboards everywhere, looking basically 20 years younger than what she is a real sign of where she is.
It's not very street anymore to look like Madonna, is it? But suddenly it is street to look like Madonna.
It's bizarre, isn't it, Madonna selling tracksuits in the first place when she started in all that sex gear. She's gone from S&M to H&M.
A los 48 años, Madonna quería probar que seguía siendo la reina del pop y la suma sacerdotisa de la moda. Su look para la gira mundial Confessions fue una simple pero audaz malla de color púrpura.
Everybody was shocked. I mean, obviously we were shocked because it was so new. We would have been shocked if a 20-year-old had turned up looking like that, to be quite honest with you, because it was so risque. But added to that, the fact that it's Madonna and she has 2 children and she's 48. I mean, we just couldn't get enough of it. I mean, there were pictures of it everywhere. It was very, very, very clever PR, marketing, the whole Madonna machine doing exactly what it does at its best.
Su más reciente dominio de las páginas de la moda no es novedad para Madonna. Desde que emigró de Bay City, Michigan, a Nueva York, siendo una bailarina de 21 años, siempre gozó de la libertad de expresarse a su inimitable manera.
I can't think, really, of any other music star who had such an immediate and such a profound effect upon the way young girls dress.
From the very first moment I saw Madonna as a teenager, and she appeared with the fingerless gloves, the whole 50 bracelets up one arm, the kind of all dishevelled, thrown together thing. I mean, nobody was dressing like that.
En 1982, los demos de Madonna llegaron hasta Sire Records, y al año siguiente su estilo único y su sentido de la moda acumulativo atrajeron la atención de los medios. Era fresca, excitante y pícara, y una inspiración para todas las adolescentes.
I think that's probably why we all loved Madonna so much in the beginning, because it did appear to be very uncontrived. It was a very kind of thrown together, messy. She wasn't groomed in any shape or form.
The way Madonna dressed for Like a Virgin was probably entirely from her own imagination and from what little things she might have been able to have in her wardrobe, because in those days she didn't have tons of money.
La crianza católica de Madonna tuvo un rol crucial en la imagen que creó. Adoraba enfatizar el uso de crucifijos y rosarios, siendo a la vez abiertamente sexual y provocativa, y los medios la adoraron por eso.
Madonna's family were also very religious. She enjoyed the rituals of Catholicism. At a very young age, claims to have seen a parallel between religion and sexuality.
She's realised that if she is shocking, A, she can get away with it, and B, it makes people talk about her. And if you're going to be successful in the music business, those are the two things that have to happen.
She'd say, out, don't want it. That's what I want. The one where the boobs come out, no bra, great overalls. I'm going to shock everyone today, and I'm going to be all around the world in 30 seconds flat, and I'm going to sell 1 million records today.
The really iconic moment came with the rocket comb bra.
I'm guessing that if you went out and surveyed 1,000 people, so what's the abiding image you have of Madonna? It's of her in the Gautier outfit.
At the time, it was so outrageous and so in your face. Nobody had ever dared, to go out in public, on stage, be photographed with a bra that actually you wore outside and maximised, your breasts.
Very rarely do you see a picture that hits so huge around the world. The conical bra was the picture. It was the first huge image of Madonna. And it wasn't as if one photographer got that picture exclusive. She made sure that every photographer from every agent, every London newspaper was there to photograph it.
The cowboy thing, that was really one from left field, because it didn't really relate to any of the songs she was singing. I don't even remember at the time there being a great cowboy thing going on. Another clever example of her sort of anticipating a trend. Because, sure enough, 6 months, 9 months down the line, suddenly the cowboy hat is being worn all over the clubs in Ibiza. And then, a few seasons on, it sort of creeps into fashion, into the mainstream.
La combinación de tweed y tiradores que emergió tras la mudanza de Madonna al Reino Unido revigorizó un estilo que muchos consideraban enterrado en las praderas inglesas.
When she moved to London, it was fantastic. She needed a tweak of her image when she came here, and that's the way she did it. She's saying, this is me, this is countrified Madonna, I want to fit in with the English style. She loves it here.
The notion of her in a country pub with a sort of hacking jacket and a pint is very strange to me.
Her whole life has really taken a quite extraordinary course in this country mansion of hers.
She's wearing tweed, she's going out pheasant shooting. This is so far away from where Madonna was 10 years ago.
She's gone from looking young, talented, crazy looking, outrageous, to dressing like an old woman now. I won't be surprised if her designer's Margaret Thatcher's designer.
Es improbable que a Madonna le importe si la prensa o el público aprueban su sentido de la moda, pero hay un aspecto de su carrera en cual desesperadamente necesita el reconocimiento, como actriz. Su primer papel en Buscando desesperadamente a Susan nos brindó una de las imágenes más representativas de Madonna en los 80. Pero en su siguiente filme decidió usar su imagen de aventurera sexual y protagonizó la mundialmente criticada El cuerpo del delito.
Now, 1993, Along Comes Body of Evidence. This is a blatant cashing in on the success of Basic Instinct, which was a huge hit around the world. And they come out with Madonna and Willem Dafoe in the is she or isn't she the saucy killer kind of plot line. And it was way out hysterically one of the worst erotic thrillers I've ever seen.
Madonna no estaba habituada al fracaso. En una última jugada con los dados del cine, persiguió, peleó y obtuvo el papel para el cual sentía que había nacido. Eva Perón en Evita, de Alan Parker.
And then something comes along which really surprised everyone, and that was Alan Parker's Evita.
She'd really wanted the part, and I believe had written to Parker and said, look, I'm your woman.
La Argentina de 1950 aclamó a Eva Perón como el emblema espiritual de su nación. Pasados 40 años, Eva está muerta, pero no fue olvidada.
There was a big resistance to her playing Evita because a lot of the Peronist people and a lot of the people who absolutely adored Evita thought that Madonna was not the person to play that part. I mean, really, there was sort of threats. You know, it was all a bit iffy before we arrived, and there were sort of, you know, it said things like Alan Parker Task Force, as if we were an invading army. Go home on walls, you know, written in red, you know, writing. It sort of looked a bit, you know, really South American sort of revolutionary time. We thought, oh Christ, as we came in from the airport, and saw a couple of these, you know, and Madonna Go Home and things like that, you know.
Mientras continuaba el rodaje, la presión sobre Madonna para probar que podía actuar era enorme.
It was a very difficult role for Madonna to pull off. I think she was incredibly stressed, and I don't think she was stressed from Alan Parker or any members of the cast. And I think it was Madonna putting herself under this stress. Madonna, it doesn't matter how much money in the world one has, if you want to do something extraordinarily well, you'll put stress on yourself.
I mean, the pressure came from herself because she knew what she had to achieve. And I think that given the fact that she was using the best equipment she had in her acting arsenal, as it were, you know, that is to say her singing, because it's sung through, there's virtually no speech in Evita. That was a great thing for her. It meant she could express herself without actually having to delve into, oh God, this is acting. You know, it was just nicely in where her strengths are. I think it was an enormous pressure on her. I know towards the end I know she said to me, I just want to get home now. I've just done, you know.
In every other aspect of her movie career, it's been really one big zero. You know, she's been panned by the critics, the movies have kind of bombed. But Evita was the one moment when she triumphed. And I think it was because it wasn't so much an acting role or being an actress as actually being Madonna, being Evita.
There was a chemistry, there was a connection about someone extremely powerful. So I think she saw herself in that role.
I mean, there may be other artists in the world who could have pulled it off as well as her, but I don't think anybody could have pulled it off any better than she did.
It's the film role that worked for her. She won a Golden Globe. It's something that she should be very proud of.
El éxito de Madonna como actriz tuvo poca vida. Después de Evita, filmó la malograda Swept Away.
Swept Away was an unmitigating disaster for Guy Ritchie. If you're going to put the mockers on any movie, you know, cast your wife as the leading role.
This is another commercial disaster. It makes $598,600 in the States, but crucially, and most insulting really, I suppose, for her, is that this didn't get a cinema release in the UK. It went straight to DVD or video, and then it went straight into the bin from most of the video shorts.
Actuar quizá no sea el fuerte de Madonna, pero sus intentos de conquistar el mundo creativo no se detuvieron ahí. Una de sus transformaciones más dramáticas fue la de autora de libros sexuales a novelista infantil.
The problem with the English Roses was that they were all a little bit jealous of a little girl in the neighborhood.
It may be that when Madonna's children came along, she began to view life with a different eye, really. You know, in the 2000s, she's writing a series of children's books with these very strong moral messages.
Mr. Peabody's Apples and The English Roses sold 1.2 million copies when they first came out, which is a great success, and the other books have been successful too. The English Roses was the fastest-selling picture book in the UK at the time.
I mean, I can't wait for what's going to happen tomorrow. It'll probably be sheets and crockery next, won't it? Because she can.
está muy lejos del primer intento de Madonna por dominar el mercado literario. En 1992, lo que vendía era el sexo. Madonna se reinventó como una poderosa dominadora under, con el relativamente exitoso disco Erótica y el lanzamiento de su tristemente célebre libro Sex.
Look, the sex book was fantastic. Number one, it was bound. You couldn't open it. We couldn't see inside it.
Sheet metal covers, vacuum packed, so you couldn't go into a bookstore and take a look through it.
There was queues in London, I remember. We sent perhaps all over town for queues at this bookshop. They were sold out within minutes. It was another huge hype into something that created more Madonna pandemonium.
I thought the sex book was a complete embarrassment and self-indulgence, which shouldn't have happened, and it was really narcissistic.
It was art. They were really, the pictures were beautifully done. They were arty images, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's porn.
She was basically saying, I can do what the hell I please.
The sex book was about me and saying, hey, look at me, and the children's books were about hopefully imparting some wisdom to people, to children.
A continuación, después de la pausa, los hombres de Madonna en fotos. Su lucha contra el paso del tiempo. ¿Y cuánto dinero se puede ganar con Madonna?
You're going to get $100 for that picture, you're going to hunt it.
Madonna Luis Verónica Ciccone podrá ser una superestrella mundial, pero inició su carrera como una humilde bailarina. Años de entrenamiento le garantizaron un buen estado físico. Su última gira Confessions reveló un cuerpo increíble para su edad.
When it comes to diet, a lot of celebrities are really good at telling us what they want us to believe. So they will claim that they live on nothing but brown rice, sprouting seeds, you name it, whatever this year's superfood is. I don't think we can get away from the fact that Madonna probably does practice what she preaches.
Es difícil creer que cuando Madonna comenzó la consideraban excedida de peso. Pero esto encajaba bien con su look de chica trotamundos de Nueva York y ella lo sabía.
Madonna herself, her shape was, I would say, more feminine. She was toned, but she wasn't muscular. She had this little curve of her belly there as well. You know, no flab. It was all fit, but it wasn't hard.
A medida que pasaron los años, Madonna mantuvo a raya su envejecimiento con una rutina de ejercicios obsesiva.
At the start of the 1990s, she came over to Britain and caused a bit of a controversy when she went jogging around Hyde Park within a whole entourage of people and really acted as if she owned the place, knocking people out of the way, stopping traffic and really causing mayhem around Hyde Park. And it's as if, you know, the message was, I'm Madonna. The world stands still when I want to go for a jog. People resented that.
Everyone on their horns, photographers crashing over bonnets of cars, falling on the road, cameras being smashed. And I'll never forget her snigger. She just absolutely loved it. I mean, it was straight ahead and let's go jogging. I mean, she must have had at the time 10, 15 bodyguards, all completely exhausted by the first corner.
En esa época, Madonna rara vez visitaba Gran Bretaña, así que una foto como esta era muy valiosa.
The thing is about when someone like Madonna comes to town, if you can't afford to miss the picture, or else you're in deep problem with the editor. As a paparazzi, you had to get the money shot.
In them days, as an exclusive, you could probably get around about 30 grand for it.
There's not many press photographers that I've seen or paparazzi running around the world that are fitness fanatics and running backwards, you know, about 10 kilometres with a telephoto lens in your camera ain't the easiest thing to do. You spend more time falling into bins and bumping into tree trunks than you actually did getting pictures.
Cuando la carrera de Madonna entró en su segunda década, las rutinas de ejercicio se volvieron más extremas. Y mientras el público se veía expuesto a su imagen perfecta, trataba desesperadamente de conservarse.
I think when people first saw Madonna, the dramatic transformation that she went through, I think they were shocked. But also, suddenly it made you aware how much you could change your body shape. I mean, God, I didn't know you could all of a sudden get arms like that.
What people tend to sort of home in on with Madonna in particular is her arms. And it seems to be women in particular, because the big fear among women so often is getting bingo wings, i.e. the triceps, you know, the underside of the arm. You know, raise your arms in the end, you've won on the bingo and it just sags down, and that certainly isn't the case with Madonna.
And I'm sure there are millions of women who took one look at those arms and rushed out and joined a gym.
I would love to tell you that there's a food you could eat that would give you Madonna arms, but unfortunately that's just a complete myth. Nothing you eat will build muscle in a certain area of the body. The reason she looks as trim and toned as she does is purely through exercise.
I think in the past it would have almost been seen as quite masculine, quite a masculine look that she carries. I mean, yeah, the shoulders and arms, which we now kind of look and say, wow, she's great, she's keeping herself in great shape. You wouldn't have seen Lulu looking like that.
Pero a los paparazzi no se les escapa nada.
Yeah, when you're looking at some of the pictures of her hands, and you look at her hands, yeah, she looks like she's got hands of a 70-year-old woman. She looks a lot more older than she is.
Bottom line is, apart from hand cream and genetics, there's actually nothing you can eat. There's no exercise that you can do to stop the signs of aging on your hands. So I guess she's just unlucky if that's an area that shows up she's getting a bit older.
Entonces, cuando el paso del tiempo se haga notar, ¿cuál será el siguiente tratamiento de belleza?
I think the thing is, maybe if her career starts to kind of flag a bit, she might think, what the hell is this all about? She might take a step back and realise doing sort of 4 or 5 hours of exercise a day is actually a bit excessive, and therefore she could go to pot. She could become a fat lady, fat Madonna.
La pasión de Madonna por la gimnasia pronto fue reemplazada por su deseo de tener hijos.
Well, basically, Madonna had been desperate for a baby for a really long time. You know, she'd been really vocal about the fact that she was constantly searching for the man of her life, the guy that she could settle down with, have kids with, and basically have a family.
¿Quién podía darle un heredero a la reina del pop? El primero de la lista fue Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, I think she probably had a physical ideal of what she felt would complement her to create this sort of so-called ideal child. And it does smack of, you know, she gets a bit carried away with her whims and her fads.
Dennis Rodman was another one of Madonna's conquests, and this was a very regrettable one on her part.
We couldn't work it out. I mean, what was Madonna doing with this kind of character? It was a kind of a fascination, which actually fueled the tabloids, particularly in America. Everyone wanted that picture of the relationship. So it was intrigue. It was intrigue. There's no doubt about that.
She would ring him up in frantic phone calls demanding that whatever he was doing, he must drop it because she was ovulating and he must get over there right now.
Pero la insistencia de Madonna ahuyentó a Dennis. Muy pronto desapareció de la escena. Madonna estaba otra vez a la pesca de un padre para su anhelado hijo. Y por suerte, alguien se le cruzó frente a los ojos.
Legend has it that Madonna met Carlos Leon in Central Park in 1994. She saw him out jogging, and if the story is to be believed, she approached him and asked him out, asked him for a date.
Out of the blue, it's like, oh, this fitness trainer, Carlos Leon, he looks great, obviously, Latino, like she always said she wanted.
Now, any other woman would jog on by and never see that man again, but obviously, if you're Madonna, that, you know, you can sort that out very quickly, and next thing you know, she's pregnant.
It was kind of weird because, you know, we knew that she wanted kids, but you kind of didn't expect Madonna to ever get into that position. And what was even weirder was that she wasn't with Carlos, and it was, you know, it was an arrangement.
Quite an interesting political statement inherent in that action, I suppose. You know, woman just wants a baby, thinks, well, I can dispense with the man, really. All I really need is, you know, the ink in his pen.
To expose Madonna's personality would be to say she gets what she wants. She wanted a beautifully looking child, and she got it.
Madonna dio a luz a su hija Lourdes. Su primera aparición pública fue sin el bebé, lo cual significaba una sola cosa para los paparazzi.
You'd have got a lot of money for that baby. Just a first shot of that baby is worth going for. If you're going to get 100 grand for that picture, you're going to hunt it. I'll tell you now for a fact, without a doubt.
Lamentablemente, ningún paparazzi tuvo suerte. Ningún fotógrafo pudo acercarse y la toma millonaria nunca se hizo. Pero a medida que Madonna se relajó en su maternidad, también se dejó ver con su hija.
She's never protected the kids from the spotlight, ever. In fact, the kids really are very aware of it when they're being photographed. I think they take a leaf out of Mum's book. She particularly, Lourdes is particularly aware of photographers. And she's a cute little girl. She plays up to the camera all the time. She's a real little actress. She'll probably be better than her mum.
Madonna, to me, is one of the few showbiz mothers who really looks like she's enjoying it, and the children just aren't there for their photo opportunities and so on. If you ever talk to Madonna about the children, you actually see her eyes light up, and she'll move away from reporters whenever she gets a chance, but actually she's starting talking about her children. She forgets that, you know, you're a reporter and will quite happily chat away. I remember once meeting Madonna out in Milan, and we started talking about music, and she was saying, no, I'm only here really because the Spice Girls are here as well. And Lola will be so pleased that I've met the Spice Girls. She loves their music.
Madonna es ahora una mujer casada con 3 hijos, pero en sus comienzos parecía como si nunca fuera a sentar cabeza. En los años 80, ningún hombre estaba a la altura de la chica material. Su vida amorosa fue una máquina frenética de generar titulares para los tabloides, tan gráficamente ilustrada con su primer matrimonio con Sean Penn. A Madonna nunca le faltaron admiradores, incluyendo a principios de los 80 a un joven actor particularmente talentoso que atrajo su atención en el rodaje del video de Chica Material.
Madonna met Sean Penn early in 1985, and he'd come along to watch the video being made because he really, really wanted to meet Madonna.
I mean, it was absolute perfect movie star meets music icon.
She said she fell in love with him on that first occasion, that she thought he was reckless and adventurous. She just adored him, and it was a very, very passionate and stormy relationship.
What's interesting when couples walk along the street together is they often send a lot of unconscious tie signs indicating the relationship between the two individuals. And you can see a number of tie signs here. He's got his arm around her. You can see that they're kind of mirroring each other's facial expression. They're both looking in the same direction. If you looked at this couple, you would have no doubt in your mind that this is a genuine couple, kind of comfortable together.
El complicado trío formado por Madonna, Sean y los paparazzi era una unión celebrada en el infierno. Pero Sean atacó primero. Cuando se casaron en 1985, se prohibió el ingreso de los medios a la boda.
He likes to keep very much out of the public eye, doesn't really give interviews, doesn't talk about his private life. All of a sudden he's married to Madonna. I mean, that's going to have a huge, huge impact on your life, and I don't think he saw that one coming.
La luna de miel aún no había terminado cuando Madonna restableció su relación con los medios. Ella entendía perfectamente que una cobertura total de prensa era vital si quería pasar de ser una estrella pop a un ícono de la cultura. La prensa fotografiaba a Madonna donde quiera que fuese y llegó a conocerla bien. A menos de 4 años de la boda, los rumores de infidelidad empezaban a emerger.
There were various rumors linking her to various other people. One was John Kennedy Jr. One was Nick Cayman, the Levi Jeans, fantastically good-looking male model. One was Sandra Bernhard, with whom she made a show-stopping appearance on the David Letterman show. It just sent Sean mad.
En 1989, la constante invasión de los paparazzi empezaba a tener sus efectos.
I think the breakup of Sean Penn and Madonna was actually had a fair bit to do with the paparazzi, but I think with Sean Penn's relationship with the paparazzi. Sean Penn had his problems. I think he had his problems with dealing with the fame of Madonna as well. I mean, I think there was a massive competition within that relationship.
La tormentosa relación de los Penn había sufrido daños irreversibles. Su matrimonio estaba condenado.
Of course, there's this sensational, epic breakup that became something of a media event when they had this great argument at their home, and the police were called in. I believe helicopters were there. It almost became an occasion, you know, a theatrical occasion. So we have a private lover's tiff being elaborated by the media into a total circus.
She did refer to Sean Penn as the love of her life, and he probably was at that time. It was just one of those classic tempestuous relationships, full of passion, but destined to kind of burn out very quickly.
Por mucho tiempo pareció que Sean Penn iba a ser el único hombre en sufrir la ignominia de ser el señor Madonna. Pero cuando el mundo corría hacia un nuevo milenio, Madonna se veía bien y podía tener al hombre que ella quisiera. Establecida ahora en el Reino Unido, un encuentro casual en una cena llena de estrellas iba a cambiar la vida de Madonna y su imagen.
Guy was doing really, really well. He'd released Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. You know, it was doing incredibly well. It was getting rave reviews. Then comes along Madonna, and it was like, ooh, God, you know, there was this Cockney guy, film director, doing really well. And then there was Madonna, who was constantly searching for somebody to settle down with.
She was looking quite ambitiously at the life of the upper-class English, and Guy Ritchie, for all of his Cockney white boy stuff, was actually part of a very privileged family. This was the very sort of environment that Madonna aspired to.
I think he's far classier than he lets on, and you do sort of think with her, well, I've exhausted all my options back in America, so isn't this kind of fun fad thing to do?
I think she had the obsession with him. I think he was played it pretty cool. I think Guy Ritchie had a few girls, and very, very attractive girls. I think it's been reported at the time where this poor young girl who was, you know, very much in love with Guy, and Guy supposedly in love with her, I think turned around to her one night when he ended it and said, well, who do you think I'm going to choose, you or Madonna? Madonna's always got what she wants, and she didn't want a superstar celebrity husband. I think she fell in love with Guy because of the creativity. I think he made, you know, what she saw was potential in making a great director.
Madonna tenía 42 y Guy tenía 32 cuando se casaron. El interés de los medios en la pareja era fenomenal a ambos lados del Atlántico. No fue una sorpresa que la prensa no tuviera acceso a la boda, lo cual elevó enormemente el valor potencial de una foto.
The value of Madonna's wedding photographs would probably been about anything from $1 million to $2 million.
When she married Guy up at Skibo Castle, the security was extraordinary. I mean, photographers were even sort of digging tunnels and hiding in the earth with, you know, massive lenses.
Forget it, impossible. I wouldn't even waste my time. I know a couple of guys who were up the trees for 2 days, and then they got them down.
Nobody to this day got a photograph. There's nothing on the internet. There are no photographs that we know of in existence, except perhaps, obviously, in her and Guy's private albums. She's very much in control of her own publicity. Quite obviously, when she wants to be photographed, she is. And when she doesn't want to be photographed, there's no way.
¿Durarán el señor Madonna y la señora Ritchie? ¿O se cansará él de ser el segundo de la carrera de ella? Madonna dijo el año pasado, me casé por todas las razones equivocadas. Mi esposo no resultó ser todo lo que imaginé que sería.
Sometimes you can learn an awful lot about relationships. When someone gets angry at the other person, the question is, how do they respond to that? Now, in this picture, it looks as if Guy's pretty angry. How does Madonna respond? Well, she doesn't respond by submitting to him. Notice what she does with her head. Even though she's not looking at him, she doesn't try and tilt her head or do a head cant of any kind. It's a kind of upright head stance. So she may be ignoring him, he may be angry, but she's not submitting to him. This photograph was taken early on in the relationship when Madonna was clearly the superstar and Guy, in some sense, knew his place at that point. He knew she was going to be the focus of attention, and in some sense he sends his message around Madonna, using her as, you know, the centre of everyone's focus. And you can tell that they have a different power relationship because he's the one trying to see how the message is being received. She really doesn't care. She's so important that she doesn't really care whether someone picks up the message or not.
Después de la pausa, Madonna con su rebaño de celebridades.
I think it's been judged by the press, and I'm not so sure that they don't think that Madonna's gone loopy.
Al entrar al nuevo milenio, Madonna no solo exploraba nuevas imágenes, sino que además empezó a revisar su espiritualidad y sus creencias. Famosa por su crianza católica, ahora se convirtió en un miembro clave de una religión relativamente nueva y poco conocida, la Kabbalah.
I think the Kabbalah situation has become a weird situation for the press. I think it's been judged by the press, and I'm not so sure that they don't think that Madonna's gone loopy.
Kabbalah for Jews really is kind of, it's a way to reach out to God, to bring God into their lives in a enhanced way that you wouldn't get through traditional going to the synagogue. And maybe she saw other people who were kind of getting into Kabbalah and realizing that this was a way to enhance not just their own personal life, but somehow maybe their career.
Kabbalah is a belief system based on ancient Judaic texts, mystical texts. The basis of it being that what you put into life, you get out.
They've got the red bands, they're going to these meetings, everyone wears white. She started drinking Kabbalah water. It was really odd because you thought, well, before, Madonna was still pushing buttons when she was doing religion. It just seems weird.
Most Jews never wore red bands ever. It's something which a lot of people have come to believe it's become part of the commercialization of Kabbalah and the populist appeal.
Let's face it, if anyone's going to support a new religion that no one was involved in, it was going to be Madonna. And then Demi Moore came in, and then and on it went because it was Madonna.
La influencia de Madonna se difundió por todo el mundo y su asistencia a las reuniones de Kabbalah pronto alentaron a fans y celebridades a colocarse la muñequera roja y averiguar de qué se trataba todo eso.
We certainly saw a mass conversion of celebrities. Victoria Beckham, Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, I believe they've all turned to the Kabbalah.
Suddenly everyone's focusing on all the famous people that study, but like Paris Hilton, you know, there's a lot of people who come in for one class or buy a book or get a red string, but that doesn't mean you study. You know what I mean? It's actually quite serious, and you have to be willing to put in the man hours. It's like going to school.
I think the suspicious bit to Kabbalah is the water and how much the red wristbands cost, and I think you're expected to donate quite a bit of time and money to the cause. I think Madonna has donated money to establishing a Kabbalah centre in London.
Madonna's always made a point of talking about Kabbalah. I think the key aspects is that she says it's improved her life, she's become a better person for it. You know, it's all about a big circle that comes around, and you know, if people annoy her, she doesn't snap like she used to. She thinks about it and about positive energy and all this, and you think, God, that's a lot to take on board.
Es discutible si la Kabbalah hizo de Madonna una mejor persona o no. Pero para 2006, la fe de Madonna pareció tener un impacto global, especialmente en Malawi.
I think the whole Kabbalah thing is very bizarre in Malawi. Malawi is largely Christian and partly Muslim. The Jewish faith itself is virtually unknown over there, let alone Kabbalah. And Madonna is building her orphanage, and those children are going to be brought up in the Kabbalah faith, which I think is going to be very odd. Long-term effects in Malawi are going to be quite strange. She's quite possibly building a whole new faith in a whole new part of the world.
Religión, moda, películas, música. Difícilmente exista un terreno de la cultura popular que Madonna no haya tocado. ¿Qué sigue para la reina del pop? Sin duda los paparazzi no creen que siga siendo comercial por mucho tiempo más.
I love taking pictures of her, but trying to sell her these days, no. She's married, she's got kids. When she's single, that's when she really sells. And the older you get, the less the papers really want you. I'd say give it probably another 10 years, and her children will sell more than she will.
Pero otros no están de acuerdo. Mientras avanza hacia su cumpleaños número 50, ¿cómo seguirá reinventándose Madonna? ¿Cuál será la próxima Madonna?
She keeps experimenting right into her 40s. I think she's making different kinds of music and presenting different kind of images to us, and always trying to shock and surprise and provoke us. It's her intuitive powers to know what's coming next that really stood her in very good stead.
Every single time she doesn't fail to take her look, her music onto a new level, and it's done so well, and she puts so much of herself behind it, and it's so believable every time she does it that we've all been taken on a journey by her, really. Her career has been a creative, musical and kind of iconic fashion journey.
The one thing that Madonna doesn't want is to be forgotten. As long as we're talking about her, looking at pictures, and there are so many memorable pictures of her, that keeps Madonna going.
She has shown us how important and how powerful image can be.
The paparazzi are difficult people to manipulate because they're after the shots that you don't want to give them by definition. But Madonna has somehow compromised that whole idea so that she gives the paparazzi everything that they could possibly want about her and always manages to look good in the process.
She's one of these women that, you know, I reckon she'll live till she's 100 and she'll still want to be at the top of rock and pop. Not many people can get away with that. Madonna did, Madonna will, and Madonna always will.